his 6 o'clock, so.
Is that what you're doing?
No. How are you? All rise. What are you doing after this, Campos? It was the only one. Oh my goodness.
They weren't all on?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. I can see it straight up now.
No, that's from
for-
RDA.
Oh, the RDA? Okay.
Just take credit for it, Mark.
Just go with it, Mark. Just go with it.
Please rise for the invocation followed by the pledge of the flag. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, your wisdom, and your support as we're beginning this meeting. Help us engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of our Easton community. We also ask this evening for you to watch over the people of the southeastern portion of our country, especially the Carolinas and Florida, being ravaged by multiple hurricanes. We also ask that you end the war in the Middle East, now entering its second year of conflict. Amen.
Amen.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Ettinger?
Here.
Mr. Pinnabone?
Aye.
Mrs. Rose? Here. Dr. Ruggles?
Here.
Ms. Sultana? Here. Mayor Panto?
Here. Hi, Vanessa. How you doing? We'll go to the approval of the agenda.
Motion.
I just want to make one alteration. I would like to have the presentation on the affordable housing program by the redevelopment authority, as well as the home group, and Neil's here, and Mike, and also, yeah, but I want to move it up to the beginning.
So that's a motion, Mayor?
Yes.
Motion.
Second.
Moved in second. All those in favor, roll call.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Pinnabone?
Aye.
Mrs. Rose? Aye. Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Ms. Sultana?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye. So at this time, we'll have our presentation on affordable housing. It seems like it was like yesterday that I appointed the Affordable Housing Task Force. And Neil, I appreciate you being the chairman of that board, as well as the new home board. And we'll introduce Mike Brett.
Thank you, Mayor. Jesus, love. For tonight's presentation, I'm going to give sort of a bird's eye view on the affordable housing objectives that we laid out for utilizing the ARPA funds. So there's obviously a lot of moving components to all these initiatives. So as I go through the presentation, we can always revisit any particular project initiative as council or the public sees fit. We could be here for several hours if I would go into every detail about everything we're doing. So I'm not keeping it kind of brief for any other reason than your time, and we can always go back and revisit. So as Mayor pointed out, we have Neil Coplin in the room. He is the president of Home Easton, which I will talk about a little bit. That is a newly formed housing development corporation that ARPA has facilitated. We have also other members of the Home Easton board, Ms. Sultana, our vice president, Dr. Ruggles, Melissa Lozada, Emilio Montedesco, and David O'Connell. So we have a board here that can come up and say a few words if you'd like to hear from them. Otherwise, they're obviously here in support. We also have several members of the original task force here as well that I'll talk to in a little bit. So as you look at these names on the list, you'll see several familiar faces that are still here. Ms. Bacadoro, Amy Bacadoro was part of this task force, as you see, as well as the other individuals that I mentioned. So a little bit of background. As I said, the objectives that we laid out to utilize the ARPA funds, affordable housing, really came from the objective of Mayor's affordable housing task force. So a little background, that was 2018 already that Mayor put together this group of people. And over 2018 to 2021, led by Redevelopment Authority staff Lisa Borick, they met on a regular basis to put together these recommendations. The task force did a great job. This was through COVID, but they kept these initiatives going, and the meeting's active. So if you see a very long delay, it's not just the speed of government; it's the speed of a pandemic as well. In October 2021, the Affordable Housing Task Force presented the recommendations to City Council for acceptance. Out of those recommendations, there were 6 major objectives, and those are the foundation for our proposed uses of the ARPA funds. So here's a list of the actionable items. Establish a housing development corporation, establishment of a community development financial institution, creation of a land bank, creation of a renovation fund, creation of a remediation and deconversion fund, and to begin projects. So I'll go down one by one what these objectives are, and give you a little bit a background on what we were doing to achieve these. So the first objective, establishment of an HDC, Housing Development Corporation. In 2022, the RDA contracted professional service providers to create the bylaws, mission statements, and all the foundational documents for the new HDC. The Affordable Housing Task Force members transitioned what we call the transition team, which would then serve as the initial board of this Housing Development Corporation. And in summer of 2024, we achieved our 501c3 status under the name Home Easton. So you can see on the right is the list of our board members, many of whom are here tonight. Second objective, establishment of a community development financial institution. The RDA, and I'm calling Neil out specifically because he's the brainchild behind this and the main impetus. So if there are any questions at the end of the presentation about this, he will come up and explain them because he can do much better than I can. But he's working with a professional service provider to do the same thing, create all the bylaws and foundational documents. It's in lockstep with our home board. They're up to date and providing feedback as we go along through this process. And the CDFI is expected to be operational by mid-2025 with all the foundational documents complete by the end of this year. The board of directors is yet to be determined, and the financial partners is something Neil's working through as well, which he can speak to if any details are desired from the council. Another objective was creation of a land bank. So the original land bank legislation was established in 2012. In 2018, there's an amendment to that legislation that allowed redevelopment authorities to assume the same powers of a land bank. So that's the legislation that we'll be working on. It allows us to kind of streamline all our administration so we don't have to create a whole separate organization. We can just do it right through the redevelopment authority, and that is through adoption of ordinance by city council. So this subject matter, early 2025, I'll probably come back with a thorough presentation on what this means, the powers of land bank, and go over some of the draft ordinances that we'll be proposing for council to accept, and so that we can pursue that status. So hopefully by mid-2025, we'll get this to the point where we'll be an official land bank. Creation and remediation of deconversion of funds. This objective is, the wording of this objective I always found a little off for what we're hoping to achieve, but this really revolves around increasing landlord-tenant relationships and helping tenants become homeowners. So there's 2 main parts of this you'll see in your ARPA budget. One is the developer incentive fund. So this is reserved for the city to use if they would like to prioritize certain multi-unit projects to help them maintain affordability. And that will be at the discretion of the city that we'll work through. The other major component of this is the creation of the landlord engagement program. This is something I'm really grateful to have the support of Mayor Panto initially. This was a program that was rolled out in 2015 by the Redevelopment Authority. And when I first started, it was a goal of mine to kind of get this back up. And in addition to Mayor Panto and the home board, I'm going to kind of call Mr. Pintabone out on this. When I first came back from the RDA, he was like, hey, even before he had a civic obligation, he was like, hey, what are the objectives? What do you guys have on the horizon? I was like, I'd really like to get this landlord program going. He said, my God, that's great. I was thinking that same thing. Anything you need, you let me know. And so he's kind of been a silent, not so silent partner along the whole way of this progress, this program as it develops. So I'm really happy for all the support across the board for this objective. We're working through revising the text manual, completely overhauling it. By the end of the year, we hope to have the base text manual done and online training modules. And we have in your ARPA budget a full-time position to run this program. So they'll be doing community engagement throughout the years and really act as a landlord liaison and ambassador to our city. A lot of the idea, I could talk a long time about this, but I'll just say a lot of the concept behind this position was to sort of model it off how our DCD acts with major developers that come in. When a major developer comes in, like J.B. Riley, Mark Mulligan, our DCD meets with them. What's your project like? How can we make sure that this is sensitive to our city and we accomplish the goals all around? We don't really have that with small-time investors in our neighborhood, and so we're kind of modeling that off of that to work with our 2 to 4 to 10 unit investors in our city to help positively impact our neighborhoods, just as DCD has done for years in our downtown. Taking our first projects, the RDA has acquired properties to achieve the goals laid out by the Affordable Housing Task Force, both in renters and homeowners. So within the budget, we'll be achieving 9 owner-occupied units, 11 affordable rental units, and 1 commercial unit that will ideally serve as the new home to the CDFI and/or Housing Development Corporation. We're also leveraging these ARPA funds with about $1 million of various other funding sources through HUD and PHFA to kind of stretch our impact even further. So that's my overview. Like I said, I know that was really quick and kind of scratching the surface. But if there's any objectives or particulars of this presentation that you'd like to hear from me or any members of the task force, Melissa Lozada is here also on behalf of the Redevelopment Authority. So if you'd like to hear from an RDA board member as well as the relationships as you see them rolling out over the next few years, we would have to do that.
I want to thank the 3 people back there, Emilio, Melissa, and Neil. Neil, we got you involved really early on, and you've been very active for the last 4 or 5 years, so we really appreciate it. And especially when you come with the partners and some of the things we're talking about there. And I also want to thank Mike for his work as a staff person for making this happen. I also want to thank Senator Boscola. We have a hard time sometimes dealing with some of our utility companies like Med-Ed, and the Shiloh Commons project on the south side needed the infusion of Senator Boscola and Representative Freeman to get them to the table to do a land swap to make the Shiloh Commons affordable housing project available to the city. What I'd like to do is ask them to forward to the House and Senate some type of, I'm not a rent control guy. I don't think we have rent control. It's the private market. But what I see right now in Easton, I just stopped today, and the gentleman lives in Wilson Borough, and he was obviously talking to me in the store about his rent going up. These older apartments, because we have apartments being built like $80 million over here, and they're getting $2,000 a month with all the benefits and extra services that they provide. We have apartments that are like $600 all of a sudden going to $1,000, and that is just putting our people behind the 8 ball. They can't afford it, and they don't understand the leases. And I think the landlord-tenant education program is very important, because people sign a lease for 3 years that gives the landlord the opportunity to either raise the rent or evict them. And what they're doing is when the lease is up, they're raising the rents a lot higher than what they were. So for a person to have a 20-25% increase in rent, it's really hurting them. And there's no improvements, there's no investment in the building. Most rent control facilities have, if the landlord puts an investment in the property, then he or she has a right to get their investment back. But they're not doing anything, and it's really putting our people in a bad way that are renters. And since 50% of the city are renters, we're affecting a large group of people, and I think we need to do something about that. And I wish the state would give us more control over our rental properties. He made all kinds of accusations about his landlord. I don't know if they're right or wrong, true or false, but his rent did go up, and so he's calling me, and he lives in Wilson Borough. But the borough isn't helping him. The police officers there aren't doing anything and about some of the other problems he's having. But I really think rent control for existing properties is really important. Some type of rent control, or maybe they can only put the rent up according to the Consumer Price Index. And when I was renting apartments for 2 of my former employers, in our leases, they had a right to go up to CPI or a percentage of the CPI, but certainly not 20 or 30%. If you want to go up 3% to CPI, I can understand that, but you can't go up 25%. So hopefully we can do some education with the tenants who need to understand that leases protect them as much as it protects the landlord. And they should get, if they really feel that they're a senior citizen, they're going to be there a long time, they should look for a 5 or 10 year lease, not a 3-year lease or a 2-year lease. They should look for never a month-to-month lease. We don't want a month-to-month lease. So I appreciate all the work that you're doing. I know it's been a lot of a labor of love for many of you. trying to get to where we actually have some affordable housing to rent or buy. I'm really happy that the private sector is coming up, like Shiloh Baptist Church is not only building 60 apartments on Canal Street, but they're also building 6 affordable housing units. And I know Mike has several that he's doing through the Redevelopment Authority, and the 2 over on Cooper Street, plus the 4 or 5 at Porter School. I mean, we have places we can build, but we don't have many. We don't have many spaces. We're pretty much built out. So the rehab is really good. The restoration of homes, turning them into apartments or own to lease to rent to own. Those types of programs are really important for people. As a person who grew up in public housing, I knew it took my dad almost I was 10 years old when we finally got our house, and it was $8,300. Trying to buy an $8,300 house now, it doesn't exist. So I would appreciate all of you that are working so hard on the home program and the land bank program and providing affordable housing for the city.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the council or any members of the public on anything? Last comment, you saw a revised budget for the home home Easton budget for the ARPA. That's just the bottom line did not change on that. Originally in your old budget, we put that together a few months ago, looking at some different sources to supplement and kind of stretch ARPA. We just refined it a little bit more from the sources that we're going to be pursuing to help kind of stretch those funds a little bit. And,
you have a really difficult task because this is a national property of supply. I mean, there just isn't a supply. I mean, when I look at Zillow online, I have a daughter who's looking for a house. I mean, there's nothing available, and they're all in the $700,000 to $800,000 range. I mean, all of a sudden, everybody thinks their house is worth $1 million, and it's not. Or at least a bank is not going to give you a mortgage at that, and you got to put down 20%. So it's really become an impediment to people owning a home. So I'm all about wealth generation, generational wealth, and creating wealth is through home ownership, not through rentals. But for now, if we can get the rent under control, that would be better than owning, I guess.
And the other thing that I understand is a really big problem is the fact that companies are starting to buy houses.
right.
Yeah, they are.
You know, and they're taking up a large portion of the market, and that can only increase the price of houses.
Yeah, and that's across the board. They're doing it in cities, boroughs, townships, all over. You're right, Dr. Ruggles.
I think one of the other things we should try to look at too is if there's any way we can incentivize with, we have a few other spots to develop in the city, incentivize home ownership opportunities. And I think there is a demand for condo projects that would have home ownership versus all rentals. I mean, I think it would be great if we could have some of those discussions to see what we might possibly
we have those
be able to
discussions
do.
with every developer that comes to through City Hall, and we were really happy. The Confluence had 48 condos as part of it,
Originally.
and they changed them all to apartments. And I think that's because a developer, a project like that is $90 million, and they put out $90 million. Not only them, but their financial performer needs to show constant income to pay the mortgage off for the next 30 years. So I guess that's the reason why they do that. And condominiums have sold in the city. We have the condos on Northampton Street, the 500 block of Northern Street. We have condos out at the Silk Mill, at the old.
Yeah, the 13th Street ones went, I think, in less than a week. If
Yeah,
I'm correct,
all
if I
6 of them
remember
went
correctly.
less than a week.
So
The
I
ones
think
up on
they're
5th Street.
great examples of showing the need and the want for that type of.
Yeah, people my
Housing.
age, because everybody always looks at me as I'm old. We don't, we sell our big homes, but we don't want to go into an apartment and pay rent for the rest of our lives. My dad's 97. That puts me at 25 more years of life. So, I'm not selling my house. I'm not selling my house.
Frank is the real.
Knock on wood. Knock on wood.
All right. Thank you very much, Council.
Thank you,
Thanks for all
Michael.
your work.
And thank you all in the back.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Okay, we're going to move on to approval of the minutes.
Move, approve.
Second.
Moved in second. Any additions, deletions, or corrections? Hearing none, we'll move on to roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Pinnabone?
Aye.
Mrs. Rose?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Edinger?
I abstain.
At this time, we have our public comment on agenda items only. If anybody would like to address city council on agenda items, you're more than happy to come up to the microphone, give your name, address, and you have 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Nick Gorski. I live at 708 Hamilton Street on College Hill. And I am a member of the Easton Environmental Advisory Committee. Excuse me just one moment. Mayor Panto, member of council, members of council, I'm here today to encourage you to approve the active transportation plan that is on the agenda this afternoon. I cannot offer the official endorsement of the council as we did not take a vote on it at the last meeting. But I can say that many of us are very excited about the plan and everything that it would mean for pedestrians and cyclists within the city. Usually I would have ridden here by bike, but I got a flat, and then I didn't have any tubes in my basement that I could use to replace my flat tire, so I had to drive. But I am a big fan of using cycling not just as a method of exercise, but a method of transportation and getting around. And I think that many of the projects and plans laid out in that plan would be beneficial to improving safety for cyclists and pedestrians. In addition to that, what I would like to say is that the council is happy to offer its support and advice in any way that we can possibly help with these projects moving forward. And I think that there's a lot of potential in terms of Safe Streets for All and Vision Zero progress that can be enabled once the council has approved this plan. Lastly, I would like to encourage the city to look into possibly implementing a complete streets ordinance, which on top of the active transportation plan would look to incorporate pedestrian and cyclist safety improvements whenever a repaving or other reworking of the streetscape is involved, beyond just the projects that were laid out in that, so that it becomes an ongoing process. That would also possibly enable us to receive a bicycle-friendly admission from bicycle-friendly community assignment from one of the national regulatory bodies on that.
I appreciate that your comments, Nick. I want you to know the administration is in full support of everything you said. We are adding bike lanes as much as we can in the city. Unfortunately, our streets are not as wide as they need to be. But for example, going up College Avenue, we have that should be done sometime in early 2025. Dave, yeah, we only have one person we know of that has complained about the elimination of the parking on that street. But right now we have cyclists, bicyclists riding right out in the traffic lane. So we're going to try to get them off of that.
Yep.
But we appreciate your comments because they're very important.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Nick, we have a short agenda. You staying for the whole meeting?
Yeah, I'm here.
And I'll talk to you afterward. Thank
Great.
you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, move on to the next item, which is there's no consent agenda. There's no reports received by council. We go right on to committee reports. Finance Committee, Vice Mayor Brown.
Mayor, I have nothing for the evening.
All right. Economic Development Committee, Mr. Pinnabone.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. We heard from Mr. Brett to start the meeting. Easton Main Street finalists. Our Main Street is a finalist for a national award. The department completed work on 3 LSA's grant applications to support construction of the forthcoming police evidence building on 611. And the department will be rolling out a grant management tracking system this week to, among other things, assist city departments in accessing new grant opportunities. I'll save it at the end. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay. Planning and Coach Committee, Councilmember Rose.
Thank you, Mayor. The next zoning meeting will be held on Monday, October 21st at 6 p.m. The agenda is out on the city's website. I also wanted to mention that I'll be attending the Pennsylvania League of Municipalities Summit in Scranton tomorrow and Friday, and I'm looking forward to networking with other elected officials from throughout the state and attending the educational workshops. That's all I have. Thank you.
Very good. Public Safety Committee, Dr. Ruggles.
Thank you. Just wanted to let council know that the drone with LiDAR is on order, and we're expecting it sometime in the near future. When it does arrive, there will be training that comes with it. At the same time,
I anticipate Public Works and the fire department and the police department will all have members at that training. They do have to have a license to fly the drone. It's a really big drone. I think it's over 6 feet across, so it's a good sized drone. Carries a big payload. Once we have that, once we've had the training on it, the intent is to then at that point have a press conference just to show the capabilities that are available. Secondly, I do want to mention that we did have a presentation by the fire chief last night on MARC, which is
Multi-Agency Resource Center.
Yeah, Management Resource Center. It's basically to manage any major disasters and how one would go about putting together a group of assistance organizations for people who have been impacted by that, whatever disaster it was, whether it be a flood or like we had the Ferry Street fire or whatever. So we had a presentation on that last night, and I think some of it was instituted because of we wanted to take a look at what we did at the Ferry Street fire and what we could do better. And so that was really one of the major reasons for having that. The other thing, and this is kind of off the public safety, but I did want to tell council that at the next council meeting, I intend to bring forward a senior citizens tax decrease, if you will, that we will, I hope to be implementing. And it's kind of on public safety because the revenue that is going to be generated in order to provide that, I'll call it a rebate, is from police cars. What we have gotten this year, we got 2 hybrid police cars. The literature suggests that each police car will save approximately $3,000 in fuel expenses for a car, and that money we are going to keep track of, and whatever savings we have is I'm going to propose that we put into a pot, and then senior citizens can apply for a rebate, and how many ever senior citizens we have, we take that number and divide it into the total pot, and that's what they get. When this totally rolls out and each police car is a hybrid, the amount of money in that pot is probably going to be on the order of a little over $100,000. So I think at that point in time, it'll be something that will be significant. Initially, it's going to be small because we only have 2. But the other thing, as far as the environment is concerned, when it's fully rolled out, we will reduce emissions by over 1 million pounds per year of CO2. Okay, so it's a huge win on the environmental side. It's also a huge win on the financial side. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Ruggles. Administration Committee, Public Works Committee, Councilmember Ettinger.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no report tonight. I do, however, have 3 resolutions that I'm going to be moving.
Thank you. Administration Committee, Councilmember Sultana.
Mayor, I'm beyond excited to announce that Mayor's Affordable Housing Development Corporation, known as Home Easton, is officially 501c3 organization. Thank you to Mr. Brett for the presentation, and thank you to Mr. Neal, Mr. Ruggles, Mr. O'Connell, Emilio, Mr. Alisa, Miss Alisa, Amanda, and others for your help and leadership along the way. A resolution is on the agenda to approve the ARPA fund, which was designated in 2021 and is now to be used to expand affordable housing. Home Easton's goal is to improve the quality of affordable housing in the city of Easton, including rehabilitate units of housing occupied by renters and homeowners, with income below 120% of the area median, including lead abatement, accessibility, aging in place modification, and facade improvement when needed. Provide home improvement and rehabilitation counseling and workshops to homeowners. And as I mentioned in my previous meetings, will provide landlord education, rental property owners. It will increase the inventory of affordable housing in the city of Easton. It will identify and take action on at least one property development opportunity to create new units of affordable housing. It will refer 50 first home buyers to counseling and financial services, will reduce evictions and foreclosure to help Eastern residents, maintain housing stability, provide eviction prevention counseling to renters, provide post-purchase counseling to homeowners, coordinate affordable housing activities in the city of Easton, and will reach 5,000 city of Easton residents and businesses owners through public education campaign. It will also assist renters and homeowners by providing information and referrals to services provided by other organizations. And as Mr. Brett mentioned, the RDA and ARDN the Board of Home Easton have hired a landlord-tenant ambassador who is already working on providing an annual training program that serves a multi-city of the purpose relevant to managing property in the city of Easton. And the second thing I have, Mayor, I'm working with Mr. Campos on an idea to create a fund for individuals who can donate money to support the victims of disasters. We also discussed the MARC program that Councilman Ruggles just mentioned to link these two programs together. It's an idea so far that I will be working on with Mr. Campos, the fire chief, and Councilman Ruggles. That's all I have, Mayor.
Question.
Okay, thank you.
Question. Mr. Campos, would that be a part of the budget session time, or is it outside of the budget?
I'm not really sure.
Okay.
I would direct the question to Ms. Sultana.
Ms. Sultana, is that going to be part of the budget?
We are still working on it, so I'm not sure what we are going to do, but we are definitely trying to, because my dream is to basically create a fund after the Ferry Street where we can help, if something happened in the city of Easton, right? But since we have a MARC program now, I think it would be a best idea to create an account. I don't know how, we're still working on it, to create an account where individuals can donate to the account and that money can be used to support the victims of disaster.
Okay. The only reason why I asked that question is because as we go into the budget hearing sessions, it's going to be very important. If we're going to put it in the budget for 2025, it needs to be said. And because the worst thing that can happen is trying to reopen a budget once that budget is passed.
Yeah.
So let's take a good look at that before we go forward, okay?
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate your effort.
Thanks.
Okay. Is that the end of your report? Report of the mayor. I just want to mention that last night's meeting was probably one of the best meetings we had, and it was live streamed, even though it was a committee meeting because we had so many presentations. And I think the fire chief, and I've already heard the New York Fire Commissioner when she talked about lithium batteries, and we're very concerned about lithium batteries. City Council in the very near future will probably make it a point to say that no electric charging station will be placed in garages, but rather on surface parking lots. We'll have them because we really believe we need them, but we won't put them in garages where they could cause, that they burn at 5,000 degrees, which would scald concrete and everything else. So we're looking at that. And the other thing you'll see from the administration, I'll be recommending that we put in our building code that no lithium battery bicycles or scooters or hoverboards be kept indoors. Yeah, no lithium batteries. Well, it's kind of hard to say your computer or your cameras are going to be outside, but with all the new apartments in downtown and throughout the city, with young people renting apartments rather than buying a house, they bring their bike in, they put it right at the door, and they plug it in. And so what happens is when it catches fire, you can't get out. You got to use your second means of egress, which is never as good as your first means of egress. So we'll probably try to somehow educate the public that they shouldn't keep lithium or electric bikes in their house or apartment. They should keep them outdoors. The videos I saw were really that New York fire commissioner does go on her speaking engagements. She takes it with her, and she's really adamant about it, and so is our fire chief. So much so that our electric vehicle we have for the parking enforcement officers are no longer kept in the sally port at the police station. And Mr. Campos no longer can keep his electric battery bicycle in his office on my wall.
Just, Mayor, for the record, I did move it.
I know you did.
Parked outside.
I know. I said
It's
you
not
no
parked
longer
outside.
can keep it there.
Okay.
It's been moved, and it was moved before we even talked about an ordinance. So that's one thing. We also had a report from our Easton Iron and Metal, and this is a brownfield site that we've been working on for probably 3 or 4 years, and we put together the residential committee made up of 17 residents to determine who would be the developer, and the developer they chose is actually working well with the city. We're really partnership because the city got a grant from EPA to start to clean up, and they're helping us, and we're going to work with them, and they're going to work with us. That site has some really nasty things buried in it. It was a junkyard long before it was a metal reclamation center, and Med Ed put their transformers there and everything else, and it's right along the Bushel Creek. So we want to make sure it's done right. So the city will be doing the cleanup, and then they will be doing. It's the same developers as the developer of the Simone Silk Mill, and they'll be putting apartments there with 10,000 square feet of commercial space. We also had a presentation by our finance director to give the new council members an overview of the budget and how we put the budget together, and it's 1,100 charts or accounts and 40 different departments and 20 different funds. So we went through that last night. It wasn't a review of the budget. We haven't done that yet. The charter requires the budget to be presented on October 1st and not touched for 14 days, which makes no sense to me, but that's the way the charter reads. I also want to thank Joe Moranville of the Quadrant Bookmark for doing an outstanding job, and all the volunteers and the staff who did an outstanding job on Garlic Fest this weekend. We had great weather and great attendance. I mean, the attendance was unbelievable. And anything and everything you wanted in garlic was there, including garlic ice cream. So we really appreciate we're becoming a foodie destination, for a culinary destination for our restaurants. So having the Garlic Fest, we had Clam Jam, Garlic Fest. Now we have a prelude to our Bacon Fest. But I will say this, my budget that I present on October 1st does have reclamation of costs. The city spends a lot of money on overtime. We have firefighters there, we have police officers there, and we have public works there doing a great job. All of them are doing a great job. And we put our price up for parking. If you want to park on the festival grounds in this garage or the 4th Street garage, it's $20. And I noticed that all the other private lots, the surface lots, are up to $20 also. But the reason for our parking fee is to reclaim some of the costs that the city incurs for overtime. So our overtime costs were a little over about maybe $45,000, and we collected $39,000 in the garages. So we almost broke even, and we're happy with anything better than 30%. Music Fest is charging, the city of Bethlehem charges Music Fest 30% of their costs. So we almost broke even, so that's even better than 30%. But our budget has in it an increase in the fees in Chapter 285 of the ordinances, which is fees. And everything from parking too close to the corner is no longer going to be $25, it's going to be $35, because it hasn't gone up since we first enacted it back in the early 50s. So it's time to start looking at inflation and what that cost is. Our on-street parking permit, which was $100 since 1987, is now going to go up to $125 a year. And so we didn't put inflationary rate. If that $100 in 1987, if you were going to charge inflation, it would be $277, which is probably more about what you should be getting, but we're going to get $125. We don't want to rip people off, but we certainly want to start recouping some of the money that it costs us to implement these programs. We also talked about Med Ed, the land swap over there. And I also want to follow up what Mr. Pinnabone said about our Main Street program. Our Main Street program is a national semifinalist, so we really want to thank them for doing a great job. And that's one of the reasons why people are moving into downtown. And we have we're no longer a ghost town that we were back in the 80s when I was here. In the 80s, it was a ghost town. And like people say about parking today, one of the merchants downtown said to me, I was here in the 80s when there was plenty of parking. I couldn't pay my bills because there's no business. Now there's no parking, but I can pay my bills. And she's right. There's no doubt about that. She's absolutely right. Also want to say I will be at the PML in Scranton tomorrow, but I'll be back because I have work to do. Should have been up there tonight for the Board of Directors dinner, but I think this meeting is important and we're leaving tomorrow morning to get up there by 8 o'clock for our Board of Directors meeting. So I'll be there tomorrow morning anyway. I'll be back in the afternoon. And that's the rest of my report. Mr. Shearer, your report.
Thank you, Your Honor. Even though we made the announcement before we adjourned 2 weeks ago that we were going to executive session, I will just repeat the fact that at the conclusion of the last city council meeting, we did have an executive session dealing with real estate, specifically the item that you'll be addressing in the unfinished business bill number 24. So that had to do with real estate. And the only observation I'll make in light of hearing Dr. Ruggles' comments and that fund and hearing the mayor's comments about the fire chief's report last night and what I heard, maybe we need to be putting that money aside for the lithium batteries that will be near the police station that they'll be using. But that's just an observation that we may need to be creating risk funds as well. But that's it for my report.
Thank you, Mr. Shearer. Mr. Campos, your report?
Mayor, just one item. Last night, in addition to presentations that were mentioned, we did have a presentation on our social media efforts.
Oh, yeah.
We are going to be setting up a meeting at the request of Councilwoman Rose to get together and discuss how we could improve our program. So it's going to be myself, Debbie, and then also Mazen. I'll reach out to you and we'll set something up. We can do it over Zoom.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mrs. Rose, for calling in last night on our Zoom call.
Oh yeah,
So it's
my flight to Chicago was
delayed.
a bit delayed, but thanks for everyone and to Mazen for help setting up the Zoom call and everything. So I was able to see all the presentations and hear everyone last night. Thank you.
And the only other thing I want to say is welcome to former council member David O'Connell. I didn't say hello to you before, but you're welcome to sit at the kids' table if you like.
Bring a bib.
All right, we're moving on to there's no correspondence. Go right into unfinished business, Madam Clerk.
Bill number 24, approving a purchase and sale agreement between the City of Easton and Foundry Development Group, LLC.
Moved. No, it's been voting on now. Okay. It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion.
I am recusing myself from voting on Bill 24 due to possible conflicts of interest in regards to my full-time employment. I will abstain from discussion and voting in order to maintain the integrity of the process while adhering to ethical standards.
That's fine with me. I like that color you have on that time. Yeah, it's rainbow.
Like confetti.
Yeah.
Going back to 70s, huh?
Is there any other discussion on the agreement of sale? We'll be happy when it's sold, but it probably won't be till the end of 2025 or maybe even in 2026. Okay, we'll take a roll call.
Mrs. Rose?
Abstain.
That's right. Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Ms. Sultana?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Egner?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
And Mr. Pinnabone?
Moving on to new business, Madam Clerk.
Resolution approving the appointment to the Civil Service Board.
Vanessa's here tonight, so we appreciate you coming in. We really need your expertise and your just a body on the Civil Service Board. We need that too because we have a hard time getting people to show up, and with the police and firefighters, it's true. So we'll. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a second? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Pinnabone?
Aye.
Mrs. Rose?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Ms. Sultana?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you for your
Welcome
help.
aboard.
If I may, it's a very important board. It oversees all the regulations for onboarding police and fire, and I think there's a lot of work to be done. And with Vanessa's background in consultative services and management, I think it'll be positive for us. So I think she's
I
a great
agree.
addition.
So I'm recommending her.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay,
move on.
We have a resolution approving the ARPA grant agreement for affordable housing.
Second.
Moved in second, Dr. Ruggles.
Can I just ask our solicitor, two of us up here sit on that board.
No, you can't ask. Okay, I'll take that back.
I just don't want to have a conflict here.
I don't think that's a problem because of the fact that the whole reason you're on that board is as a representative. We have all these associated boards, and in this particular case, and considering the nature of it, I think it is part of what was inherent as to why you're on those boards, and would sort of defeat the purpose of city council's function if members who are interlocking with the other agencies then disqualify themselves. Now, if you have reasons to doubt why this board should get the money because you're on the board, that would be a reason actually to vote against it. But I would not find it a conflict. I just don't think we could function otherwise because we want to have, not only do we want to have a lot of these associated boards, we specifically have a seat, and
Right.
and then if we can't vote for council, you're voting known to be a representative of city council. You're going to have a bigger problem voting on that other board than you would have here.
So, and also I want to add that this motion is formal in that it meets the criteria from the Department of Treasury to create what's called an obligation. All right, so that's the action that we really need to take. The step of showing the budget was an extra step to be extremely transparent to council. But the vote to move this forward meets the criteria of creating that obligation to the Treasury Department, so we're compliant. So that's the action that I see that you're doing.
True.
And there's also the fact that you're not compensated for being on that board, right? So there's no financial interest really there. And I think that's an important factor too. I think it's one of the reasons why Mrs. Rose properly disqualified herself, because there could be an implication down the road that there's a financial impact. But here there really isn't any. You're just doing your public service, your public duty.
And also, according to the charter, like we created those positions as a Eastern representative, Eastern City Council representative. So according to that, I think we should be fine with voting on it.
All right, let's vote.
Sign.
Ms. Sultana?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Pinnabone?
Aye.
Mrs. Rose?
Aye.
And Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
And I'll note for the record that if your two votes didn't count, it would have passed anyway. So no harm, no foul if anybody's considering challenging.
That's not true.
No?
No. That's an unpledged rule
Oh, okay.
as an official.
We have a resolution approving the adoption of the city's active transportation plan.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion. This should put us in line for a lot of additional funding from grants from the state and federal government. So we're looking forward to making those improvements that Nick was talking about.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Pinnabone?
Aye.
Mrs. Rose?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Ms. Sultana?
Aye.
A resolution approving the amendment to the ARPA budget, changing line item number titled Route 611 Engineering.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second, discussion. David, you want to just tell them what this project is, the Abbott Street Bridge? It's really not a street. It's more like a canal.
So as council may be aware, about a year and a half ago, one of the Abbott Street lock is located on the canal in Humor Park, and it's what enables the boat to go up and down and enable the DNL to offer that concession. The miter gate broke. It was originally installed in 1985, and the bottom portion of it just completely broke off. So we're not able to do lock rides anymore. And the other problem is that when the miter gate was functioning, the lock could hold water and even out pressure on the entry gate into the lock. Now that one piece of timber is holding back the entire impoundment without any pressure behind it. So, and if that goes, we won't be able to hold water in the canal. So we went to the Humor Park Trust, and we worked out a deal where they would front the money for the repair, which we assume is going to be between 90 and 100,000 to replace both gates historically correct. And in return, they spin off a portion of their corpus to the city. They won't do that until they recover back the money, which is approximately 10 months or so. And then they'll resume payments back to the city, and we've budgeted accordingly for that. So, so we had to get a specialty contractor who only does that type of work, working with large timber. And we're hoping that he's able to get started in December and be done so we can have the boat up and running for next year. So what we did was we actually we actually kind of switched the money for the 611 engineering, which it's kind of a mess. It originally started at an affordable rate, and then PennDOT told us the budget for that project quintupled. And so would the city's commitment to that. So I think we need to revisit that at some point in the future. This is more pressing.
Thank you. Just for the public, I mean, the Route 611 is a state route, and the retaining wall that holds up the road needs to be addressed, and it's a lot of money, and the state thinks we should pay for it. Well, it's your road, and if the wall collapses, the state. Our only reason for being so involved in the discussion with the state is because if it does fail, all the truck traffic will go up over Lafayette Street and down Cattell Street, and we'll have triaxles and tanker trucks going through College Hill neighborhood, which we don't want. Otherwise, we tell them, do it yourself.
So is it my understanding that the funds for the bridge are going to come from Humor Trust, and they're going to reduce their contributions to the city over a 10-month period? My question is that reflected in the budget that you gave us?
Yeah, it's reflected.
Okay.
It is.
Okay.
The ARPA budget. Okay.
So and addressing this into the 611 into the future, is that just an open window, or is that something that I mean, I haven't been down there, so I haven't looked at it to see exactly the condition, but I mean, I certainly don't want the triaxles and tractor trailers coming up over College Hill. So I don't want to see us postpone this for a period of time to where it collapses, and then all of a sudden we got an emergency situation. Sorry to make you walk back there again.
The 611 project it's super complicated. It's over a mile of retaining walls that once held up the sidewalk area and the guide rail. And, during the flooding, we lost a significant portion of those walls. We actually battled back and forth with PennDOT, arguing that those walls were not constructed to hold up the sidewalk. They were constructed to hold up the original 611 when it was built. They've dug their heels in that it's there to hold up the sidewalk. They have some case law from the Highways Act from 1950. We've been through this with them for 15 years. The project to redo the sidewalk is estimated between 15 and 20 million. And so we're only talking about engineering costs, which originally started out at, I think, maybe 300,000 total, and now it ballooned to like 1.2 million. And in this case, for whatever reason, normally when you get federal highway funds, it's 80% federal, 15% state, 5% local. In this case, the state's not putting in the 15%. I don't clearly understand why. It's the type of federal funding source it is. So it's just the feds 80, the city 20. And so when we get up to the big project, you know, we're looking at a contribution of $3 to $4 million. And, you know, I see that being a pretty big hurdle for us, you know, supplying that kind of money for a project that really, you know, it's sort of out of sight, out of mind. It's really just a, you know, a retaining wall project that no one will ever see. And so one of the thoughts we've had, and I've talked to PennDOT about this, is just abandoning the sidewalk completely. It's in terrible condition. There's tons of truck traffic down there. Over the course of this project, I've probably personally spent 20 or 30 hours down there with the PennDOT engineers, and I've been sitting on that sidewalk where truck tires have hit the curb. I mean, it's frightening down there. So I don't believe shutting the sidewalk is the worst idea. And so we've talked about a system of Jersey barriers that would both act as a guide rail and keep the sidewalk closed, which would be a much more affordable project. I know there are people that do like to walk down there, but I just don't see how we get around the expense, and we have to prioritize the safety. So that's kind of where I see that going. PennDOT has, you know, they've said that they don't believe that what's going on with the retaining walls is going to affect the roadway. I share your concern, because if that does happen, then you're looking at tons of truck traffic up over College Hill.
Yeah.
And there is a ton of truck traffic on 611. So it's really a vexing problem. There's no great solution, and we don't even have any money programmed on the tip for it, just for the preliminary engineering.
Well, as I understand what you said earlier, was the retaining wall was there with the road.
Yep.
And then the sidewalk was added. Is that what you're saying? That's where we were able to garner from our records. Like that was like a betterment in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s when that was put in. That was back when, you know, timber guide rail was still acceptable on a state route.
While you're at the podium, would you tell us would you tell the public why the buses are out on 3rd Street?
So
And the parking garage is closed.
I thought there was a fire in
No, there's no lithium batteries.
well, there was almost a fire. So the Water Authority was doing test borings for a water line. Ferry Street's gonna be a pretty busy place for utilities. We have to be the first in with our new sewer line. So we're gonna be out to bid for that, and it's pretty complicated. We have a bottleneck in there we need to fix. So once we're done, they're gonna get in there and get their water line done, and then gas has to get done, and then fiber, and so it's gonna be a busy next 6 months. But they were digging test borings, and they hit Med-Ed's high voltage line, and so now they're out there working at the bus exit, and they actually blocked it off but didn't really tell anybody. So when I called our parking garage attendant, he didn't know, and I thought it was kids that were goofing around with the barricades. So I took it down, and then one of the Med-Ed people told me that they did have a problem, so put it back up. So it's 6 to 8 hours, they say, and it should be back in service.
Thank you, Mr.
You're welcome.
Hopkins. So, ready, roll call.
Sure. Mr. Pinnabone?
Aye.
Mrs. Rose?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Ms. Sultana?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
A resolution approving a cooperation agreement with Lafayette College pedestrian improvement to Patel Street.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second, any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Pinnabone?
Aye.
Mrs. Rose?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Ms. Sultana?
Aye.
At this point, we have public comment on any matter concerning the city of Easton. Art? I want you to know, Art, we're ordering a wireless microphone so we can bring the microphone to you.
And a bench.
Mazin's doing it. I should take credit. Mazin thought of that.
Aren't you bringing some rocks up here for people to sit?
Party.
Does anyone in council know anything
more about the warehouse on 13th Street? Any negative progress? No.
I asked a lot of questions at the solicitors meeting on Wednesday, but there's no new information. I asked what happens if the Easton Planning Commission turns it down, and they'll probably just move it so that it's all in Wilson.
Okay.
Wilson approved it, so,
We're out of business.
but it would go to court.
Okay.
Artie, I was going to meet with the developer a couple weeks ago at the advice of our solicitor. I did not, but I sent them the list of questions that the residents asked,
Good.
and they're going to have all those answers to us before planning meeting, and then they're going to touch on them in the planning again.
An 11 November planning meeting.
6, yes.
I just heard for the first time the city's buying a 6-foot drone. Are we planning to invade Phillipsburg or something like that?
No, it's gonna carry a LiDAR camera.
Oh, a camera.
It's gonna be.
We're gonna film you, Artie.
We have, does anyone know how many police cars we have right now at the present time?
About 48.
That's a lot of police cars, Mayor, and we're buying 2 more?
No, we bought 4 more. We replace them every 5 years.
Oh,
About 4 a year.
About 4 a year, yeah.
a lot of police cars.
Yeah, we have a lot of police cars, and fortunately, we haven't needed them. They're there when we need to call in for like a bank robbery or something like that.
And they specialize some of them, right, Mayor?
Yeah, some of them. A lot of them are specialized. A lot of them are just canine dogs.
Oh.
Some of them are detectives' cars that aren't marked.
Yeah.
Some of them are SWAT vehicles or CERT vehicles.
And we did purchase a all electric van as basically a place where we can carry all of the equipment that we take out to accident investigation or crime scene investigation. All of it will be in that van.
That's it. The rest was covered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Artie.
So anyone else?
Mr. Frederick.
Mr. Frederick.
City Council, government officials. Name's Tyrone Fredericks, live at 493 Line Street. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to respectfully request a reevaluation of the yellow painted line in front of my house, my residence. Currently, it's 45 feet, which is quite a distance, taking up 2 parking spots. And I think when he evaluated the distance, I watched them do it. They had 1 spotter parked directly at the stop sign, and the second spotter walked up towards East on Line Street. Unfortunately, when cars come up, they don't stop at that stop sign. It goes through the stop sign almost to the street itself. So if we have a reevaluation of that, I think that line would probably be a little more shorter. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do want to get out there. I've been out there. I've taken pictures of it, and I know how long it is.
Yes.
But that's one of the reasons why we don't paint yellow lines anymore, because every intersection is different.
Yes. But I like I was saying, I believe if they would have had the first spotter in the vehicle park where cars usually coast through that stop sign and park, I think he would have had evaluated that line to be maybe 2 car lengths shorter than it is now. Because as they did that, no one stops at the stop sign.
I'll have the police
It goes straight through it.
I've been out there.
Yeah.
I saw you down at the circle, but I did go out in my rounds around the city, and it is rather long.
Mayor.
Yeah, quite long.
It's not,
Isn't the regulation 30 feet?
Mayor.
30 feet.
45. 45
I'm
feet
saying
long.
the state regulation is 30 feet.
Correct.
Okay, and it was my understanding that 30 feet is measured from the curb line of the intersecting street. I don't know what the definition is. I haven't read that.
Mayor.
I haven't read that detail into that.
Yes.
But
Is there exceptions to that, Dave?
That's what I was going to ask Dave. Mayor, myself and Dave have been working on it. The actual paint came from the neighbors' complaints of the accident. So, Dave, can you speak to it while we're at 45 there? And I know Ms. Fredericks across the street They're 22 feet. I couldn't explain it, but we've been working on it for
Thank you, Council.
since June or July.
Since it's been done.
So,
We did it June or July.
so there are two statutorily enforceable distances. One is 20 feet from the crosswalk. The other is 30 feet from a stop control device, which could be a signal or a stop sign. When Councilman Pinnabone called me and told me about the accident, we went out there and we did a traffic study. Over the last couple of years, we've picked up some really nice equipment. We have 2 radars that are extremely accurate. We have cameras that watch intersections and can count movements. So we looked at the intersection. The speed was relatively high on Line Street, and for whatever reason, the westbound traffic is way higher than the eastbound traffic in that location. I don't know whether it's people going to Packer Street to get to Glendon Avenue, but there is a heavy traffic count going west. The average speed was, the 85th percentile was like maybe 29 miles per hour. I'd have to look. So when we went out there, the usual procedure is to use the sight distance triangle. In order for us to use that, which is the recommended method, you would have lost at least double that distance. So we tried to use a common sense approach with engineering judgment, and I had the engineering team go out there and try to minimize the distance as much as possible, and that is the shortest distance we could get where there was any level of comfort that you could see pulling out there with the speed on the roadway. And we, it's a constant tension between parking and safety, and it's really difficult, especially in an urban area. We get requests all the time. In fact, I'm going to say in the past 2 weeks we have 10 requests for taking parking away from corners. And part of the problem is, you go to one corner where you've gotten the request for, and then you go to the next corner, it's the same condition. So, but there really is no need at all to provide no parking here to corner signs or yellow paint at all. They're supplemental additions as a courtesy, but those parking issues can be statutorily enforced by the police if they're within that 10 feet or the 20 feet or the 30 feet. So, it's not our favorite thing to have to go out there and do it. So what I talked to Councilman Pinnabone about, I'm working with the staff to develop a set of criteria. And if a certain intersection meets 2 or more of the criteria, and I would ask City Council to adopt this as an ordinance, it would be a candidate for supplemental additions, because there's no way we could ever install, maintain, or enforce these types of additions at 800 intersections. It would just be impossible. And I feel like, right now it's a bit arbitrary. We're responding to complaints like in this case where we felt it was warranted. But the criteria will include side street volume, through street volume, 85th percentile speed of traffic, and we'll really try to narrow down what intersections in the city are candidates for these types of markings, because they're obviously not popular with the residents. We don't like to do it, and then I feel like, on the other hand, we're put on notice that there's an issue here, and how do you find an engineering solution to it? So
we're unique, Dave, in that aspect. Just as well as our setbacks, our houses in Easton are unique. You go to one block, the setbacks are one way. Go to another block, the setbacks are a different way. So I understand. My concern is too that, and especially in Mr. Frederick's area, he parks right in front of his house.
I know.
Now we're telling him he has to go to his backyard and park, or the side of his house to park, to even bring his groceries into the home. That's an inconvenience for anyone.
I agree. I would not like it if it was, my own house.
That's what myself and Dave have been talking about, and we finished yesterday because we got a lot of complaints from College Hill. It's to the point where we're weighing safety with convenience, and that's the issue we're having all over the city. West Ward, Ferry and 10th, you have a hard time seeing. College Hill, you have a hard time seeing. So when Dave came up yesterday with, we have to set a criteria, because we're really basing it on, we're weighing it between safety and convenience. It's convenient to park in front of your house, and I hate that we had to go 44 feet, or it ended up going 44 feet back. Is is Mr. and Mrs. Fredericks, if the bush got, and I don't know how much you love your bush, Mrs. Fredericks, it's been there since we were kids, but if we shrink the bush a little bit, could we give some of the corner back, or would that not make a difference? That bush that's on the corner.
I did drive it initially, and I had a very difficult time pulling out. I wasn't out there when they took the measurements, so I'd have to go back and talk to the staff. Maybe.
Okay.
But you know, that 20-foot and 30-foot recommendation, those are minimums. Those are not absolutes. So the minimum it could ever be would be 30.
Going once, going twice.
That gives you one extra parking space.
Yeah.
We'll go out. We'll go out and take another look at it. They are.
Okay, they are flying, and then the people coming off the Pole Street going south, they painted a nice white line, but we got new roadway, so the white line's no longer there. But they don't stop at the white line, they're stopping in the middle of the intersection.
I know.
So it's the drivers that are caution.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why we fought the Williams Township warehouse out on Line Street. When you get to Center Street, the left side, the south side of Line Street is actually in Williams Township. So all those businesses back there where Smith used to be is all Williams Township, and they want to put a warehouse there. And the only thing we did was we fought the Williams Township, said, look, if you want a warehouse there, that's fine. We can't tell you not to put it there, but we want all the ingress and egress off of Industrial Drive, not off of Line Street, because we didn't want the truck traffic on Line Street. We did the same thing with the truck stop right up the street from you, where Turkey Hill is. They wanted to put and they wanted us to make Line Street one way. We said no. And then we stopped. That developer left. He's not around anymore.
That's all we're requesting today, 15 feet back, that we can park in front of our house. We still have 30, plus the curb. They didn't go up to the curb, so there's
Right.
6 feet that they didn't measure for.
We'll cut the bushes down.
You're making a strong case here.
We cut them down every year.
40 plus years.
I know.
And we've had 4 accidents. It's because of the influx of
Distracted driving. I mean, we get it all. Every time there's an accident, they want a 4-way stop sign. I got that at 10th and Ferry right now, and that accident was caused by a person who was not paying attention to the other.
Everyone.
We're just here for 15 feet back.
Good job, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
We'll take a second look this week. Okay.
Dr. Ruggles.
There's one other reason I think that yellow lines are important is that it identifies for individuals where they can and cannot park. I mean, if we didn't paint something and we went out and gave somebody a ticket, they would, well, why can't I park here? You know, they don't know those regulations. And I think, you know, painting the lines, they see a yellow line, oh, I can't park here, you know.
Right, and if we could do all 800 intersections in the city equally, but we have to pick and choose because we just don't have the resources to do it.
I understand, but I'm just saying that there are other reasons too to have them.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. But that's why I think if we have criteria for it, you know, all right, well, this intersection meets these criteria where we're uncomfortable with it currently, the way people are parking, you know, that I think that's a good way to apply some logic to the resources that we, you know, how we employ those resources.
Good point.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. David, since you're here, on Center and Berwick Street, where a child was hit by a car, there are 2 stop signs by the alley, and they are on the on the pole, but it has been pushed and I think rounded by the pole, which is not very visible. Would you please make sure you fix those signs and they're very visible to the drivers?
Yeah.
Center and Berwick have blinking lights. So
No, it's
No,
down,
the alley,
down the block.
down the alley. Yep.
Bird.
It's
or
in a little
Sassafras.
bit. Yeah, Bird.
Bird.
Yeah, there are 2 stop signs, but they have been pushed around the poles, so they're not very visible.
But not the stop signs at Berwick.
No, not on the Berwick, but in the center street.
Center and
Center and
Gotcha, okay.
Bird, yes.
The alley
Yeah,
The alley, yep.
we can do that. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Dave.
Anybody else like to address city council? Melanie?
Okay, a couple updates. I wanted to let you know, thank you for Garlic Fest and letting the skateboarders come. We had a fantastic time. We had such big crowds that were applauding these kids when they were doing their tricks and yelling and screaming, and not only from the end of on Church Street where it was coming down 3rd Street, at the other end, down by where the church was. It was both ends that were watching these kids do their tricks and yelling and screaming. We got a $500 donation from someone who just came up and says, can I donate $500? And gave a bank card. It was fantastic. Also, we got the Kiwanis is going to donate. They're going to contact Five and Dime and get a paper filled out for their donation. And Mrs. Sultana donated 3,000 sneakers, was it? 3,000 sneakers, which was really nice. We got some monetary donations. So I think we made probably between $1,500 and $1,800 that day, which was really good. When we had it at the other one, we made probably close to $3,000 that day, but we didn't have like a lot of people watching them. But this time the crowd was there, and they were so happy that they entertained these people. And they gave Five a Dime and Home Base and another one gave skateboards and all kinds of things away just for a $5 ticket, and made these people happy, especially the little kids who were winning big skateboards with no wheels. I don't know why they liked it. Their parents are going to have to invest, but they were just so happy winning these things. So that was a great day. Also, Dave, this question's for you. Southside Civic has decided to take on the fire station in Southside, so we are cleaning it up. Patty and I volunteered free to paint the cannons black. So Dave see that we got the cannons because they need it. We have to get all the dirt and stuff off them first, but we do need, Dave, some white paint for the stone columns in front, because we need to get them, power washed. So all the paint chips and everything come off because they're really bad. So would you be able to do that for us, give us that? And other than that, we're gonna try to see if we can meet Dave over there, because there's one big spot we wanna see if you can take care of it for us that needs to be cut down. It's against the building and it's very bad, and we wanna get all that out of there to make it really nice, because we had a fantastic tree lighting ceremony last year, but that whole one section was just overgrown, and there's poison plant that's all the way this big that's really blooming.
Mayor.
Okay. Sounds good. But it's just that we want to make it really nice this year, and, we just put our time into it, so people do appreciate it, and we had, like I said, we probably had over 200 people last year, which was fantastic. So we're hoping to have another big turnout, and that's going to be November 22nd. Up at the Southside Fire Station, so everybody's welcome at 6 o'clock. It's going to be a fantastic night. I think that's all we have to say. Okay, thank you.
Just, Mr. Pinamo just reminded me about McKean Park, which is right next to the Southside Fire Station.
Yes.
The Southside Fire Station was built in the late 1700s, and it's under review right now, evaluation by Alloy Architectural for Alloy 5. We will probably have to put another bay onto it, so we'll probably lose 20 feet of that park.
Well, we're still looking around in Southside to see if we have to go somewhere else for a big event like that. We haven't found anything because we need electric, and a lot of them don't have electric where we have to go. The tree that you gave us is just blooming like crazy. It's so big we can't even get a bow on the top or an angel or anything. And people ask us, why is there anything on the top? Because the bucket truck can't get in there because of the wires and stuff. So do you think that's going to be like another couple years, like 3 or 4 years?
It's probably going to. We're planning it in 2025, so it'll be 2026 before it's built.
Okay, that's good. So we at least have maybe probably a good 2 years to go yet. Yeah. But it was a big turnout, and we really appreciate having that park. It's great. So, okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam.
Anyone else want to address City Council? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mayor, I have a few things.
Oh, go ahead.
Before we adjourn. They weren't part of my economic development report, so I didn't bring it up. First thing, Mayor, when you spoke about Shiloh Commons, the 60 affordable units, we got some really good news from Shiloh this week that we can't share publicly, but it's going to take the amount of units from 60 to 120. So we're going to have 120 there, commercial, and then the 7 up on Phillip Street. So that's really good. The second thing, talking to Roger today about the budget, my goal from talking to residents last year about the pools was to open at least one pool full time. I thought Hile, because people from College Hill can drive to Hile, whereas people from Westward and Southside can't get to Eddyside. So I thought Hile would be good. However, to open up Hile every day, we're looking at additional 55, 60,000. I've been looking hard at the budget. I came up with $295 instead out of the 60,000. So I don't know how that's going to work, Mayor. But what I'm going to give to
I did talk to Mr. Hopkins about this, and let's let Mr. Hopkins answer why we can't open Kyle every day and any side partial day. You were talking about you're not going to get a lifeguard to work every other day at any side. Sorry about that. Get his steps in. He needs 10,000. Walks to work every day. Walks home.
So, I mean, you probably could make it work. It would be a fairly complicated schedule because normally the lifeguard, like Hile, you need 9 guards total plus a manager plus the gate, and then you're going to have Eddyside that you're going to need a big influx of guards every other day. So I think you're going to start cutting into hours, which I think could make recruitment tough. Whereas now, they figure out how many guards they need and they just rotate the pools every other day, and they have a standard crew. If you throw that pool in every other day, they're going to have to really expand the number of guards that are hired. I'm sure it could be done if that's what council wants to do. We'll figure it out, but it does make it more complicated, especially the managers, right?
Well, and like I said, the big issue is the money, and I don't know if we're going to find the 60. So what I'm going to present to the administration tomorrow, I went back and looked at the pool fees. I slightly increased the non-resident fees, which is still substantially lower than neighboring pools. So I raised non-resident fees. I decreased slightly city resident fees that live in the city, so it's a little cheaper for the families for the passes. And I took the seniors to 0. So it would be free for the seniors, lower for city residents, higher for non-residents, and we'd still increase revenue by $300. So I'm going to pass that to the directors to look at, and hopefully we can do that. And then lastly, I've been working for a few months. So I've talked to you guys publicly at the council. When I came on, we started looking at parks, and we're going to, redo Raspberry and a lot of parks in Easton. One thing I was looking at when I was going through all the parks is we don't have much for our special need residents, our children that are special needs, wheelchairs and autistic and blind and things of that nature. So that's something that I've been really working on for a while. And I went to the mayor and I asked the mayor if with the staff I can find a location and I'll raise the money. I won't use any city funds. Can I have his blessing to do that? To which he said yes. So working with Dave Hopkins, working with Kevin McCarthy from REC, we've identified Milton Park. It's very accessible for parking, for wheelchairs. We designed the park, sort of design. It's $111,000. So I'm going to start raising money, Mayor, if you want to write me a check for half of that. But we're going to raise money and we're going to build a park
A lot.
that is special needs. It has sensory boards, wheelchair swings, just different things for the communities. I got the numbers that I can go over with council if you're interested of how many kids we have in the school district that we serve that are in the Easton School District. So we're going to start raising funds, and we have a structure set up that Lewis helped me create to where we will name the park based on your contribution for a certain amount of time. So if anybody has any interest in learning more about it, you can email me or call me, and we'll go from there. That's all I have, Mayor. Thanks.
Speaking of that, raising money, we obviously need to raise $6 million for the Westward Community Center. We did get a $50,000 contribution so far, but the town of Phillipsburg last year, I attended the pass, punt, and kick by the NFL competition last year, and they had a really great showing. And I competed against the mayor of Phillipsburg at the time, was Todd Tersigny, and
it was raining, so they had it at Phillipsburg High School in the gymnasium. This year, we're going to have our pass punt kick probably the second Saturday in November. We're still raising the money to give every kid a T-shirt that competes, every kid, then obviously the trophies at the end. And then at the Powder Puff, which is the girls play, the girls of Easton play the girls of Peterborough. Usually it's at every other stadium. This year it's at the Phillipsburg Stadium. So we would have the competition against the 10 Easton champions and the 10 Phillipsburg champions to see who's the champion of that age group. So we'll be putting out publicity on that. But I also want to mention that it's also not just for Easton residents. It's for all the sending districts to the high school. So Palmer Township, Forks Township, Lower Mount Bethel, they're also going to be invited to participate. And the reason is because they're all going to be playing on the same football team when they get to the high school. And that's what Peterborough does. Peterborough does ascending. So it's not fair for us to compete just the city against their entire school district area. So they have Low Packong, Pohackong, and all the sending districts of Phillipsburg High School. So we'll do the same thing. We'll follow suit. But I don't have a problem charging non-residents at all because they don't pay any property taxes. So you'll have my support on that. I don't believe. I mean, if you live in Easton and want to go to Palmer Pool, it's $475.
I didn't want to point that out.
Well, I do.
Mr. Brett's.
Well, he's
I didn't want to
Mr. That's okay. He knows what he charges. And there's a reason for that, because the pools are subsidized by property owners. They're not subsidized by the fee. You lose money on pools. I mean, we lose $100,000 every year on pools. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast. We'll look at Wilson Borough. They're not. Their pride of their borough was the Muser Pool. They filled it in. They can't afford the $2 million it's going to cost them to renovate it. They have a sinkhole under it. So, pools are expensive. Municipal pools. Our pool, Heil Pool, was built by the veterans of foreign wars. The VFW Post 1470 up the street. It was on Northampton Street now. Now it's out in Palmer Township. But they were the ones who built that pool and gave it to the city. There's a big difference. They actually ran it when I was a kid. They ran it for a few years, and then they gave it to the city. Got rid of all their liability and all their costs. Anybody else? No, we put that out to bid. Y takes care of the management of the lifeguards and the managers and the lifeguards and managers and ticket takers.
Do we have a program to donate for the North Carolina down south?
Not yet, we don't, Mr. Fredericks. Not yet.
We don't, but on social media,
There's plenty of
families
places.
that are doing it.
Yeah, there's families, and there's also Transbridge filled up an entire bus of supplies. The last time we did it was for the hurricane that hit Charleston, Hurricane Hugo.
Yeah.
We were able to get Prislack Trucking to donate 3 tractor trailers to take down. So that was, and I took down a load of roofing supplies with a 10-ton dump truck.
I just got an email today, and this is from up in the Poconos, but there's a church up there, Salem Lutheran Church, is taking a truck down, and they were requesting donations for that truck. So I haven't heard anything around here, but I was actually going to suggest to council that we try to coordinate something, because Florida is going to be a lot worse. It's going to be a lot worse, and that hurricane's going to hit in a location where it's really heavily, Tampa, and there's going to be massive destruction, and I think that there's going to be a huge amount of need there. And that's the thing is, you have two major disasters like that, and all of a sudden, the whole shifting of people's views go to Florida, and then North Carolina is sitting there going, "Hey, what about us?" and so we have to understand there's two that are going to be taking a long time to recover out of that, and I work after Katrina down along the Gulf Coast, and it's incredible how much destruction those hurricanes cause. It really is.
The issue, we did it back in Hugo in the mid to late 80s. We collected building supplies and clothing, etc. And very frankly, it was really a lot of work because most people were just bringing all their garbage. They were, we end up, it predated Safe Harbor, and we owned that building, so that whole building was filled with junk. And we had to separate it and put it in the trucks and package it and everything. It's a lot of work. And that's why the Red Cross is somebody you should really support, because they give 100% back to the hurricane relief.
Hey, Mayor, one more, I just forgot, I'm sorry. This Monday, 9 a.m. at Bravo and Southside Community Center parking lot on 9th Street, we're bringing the medical vans in, medical and dental. You have no insurance, you're still going to get checkups, you're still going to get blood pressure, mammograms, dental checkup, everything free of charge. So put the word out, and anybody that needs it, get them over there. That's it, Mayor.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion.
Second.
Moved in second. Roll call.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Ms. Sultana?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Pinnabone?
Aye.
And Mrs. Rose?
Aye.
Thank you all for coming. Our egos are looking terrible.
See you later.
I don't know why.
Ours are looking worse.
I didn't look when looking at the score. I don't know why they're not throwing the ball to Doc.
I don't either.
It doesn't make any sense.
Hey, Mayor,
Yeah.
6:45
AM.
a.m. I'll be there. He won't be up, Roger.